Now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for October 6th. Well, here we are, a quite different scene than what we've typically seen in these tropical weather bulletins, with the no tropical cyclones active text now displayed here, of course, given the fact that there are no tropical cyclones active, with the only thing being tracked by ATCF at this point being 92W. It's day 128 of Atlantic hurricane season, and the only thing to note here is an area of interest with a 10% chance of development. Of course, the remnants of Sam are also active with hurricane force winds, but at this point its center is becoming increasingly elongated. In the Eastern Pacific, we have an area of interest on this 142nd day of hurricane season, and it is likely that this could see some development in the coming days, and it would be the first storm to form in quite some time in this particular. In the Western Pacific, we have two things worth noting here. Invest 92W with a 90% chance of formation, while what is used to be Invest 93W has been downgraded to an area of interest, but still has an 80% chance of formation. In the North Indian Ocean, there's nothing going on here, but of course we still have that Southwestern Indian Ocean that we are going a little bit high on personally, but 60% is the one we are giving it. It used to be 91S. However, it's getting completely sheared, so I think that might be very generous. Here is where 92W is at the moment. 30-mile-an-hour winds with a pressure of 1,003 millibars. We're only going to go up to 84 hours just because of the uncertainty in the forecast track, but we are expecting this develop within the next 36 hours into a tropical depression before strengthening into a tropical storm. Now, I must say there's a lot of model spread with this, so definitely do not rely on the track forecast because this could very well change easily and dramatically. Here we are with the North Atlantic satellite imagery. You can see the remnants of Sam as it continues to push northward. It's just a very powerful and large exotropical system that they're dealing with at this point. Of course, it's not being tracked by our EU team, but other than that, it's nothing that is worth noting at this point. In the Eastern Pacific, you can see what's going on here. Nothing to really note, given the fact that the area of interest hasn't really become a disturbance that is exactly traceable at the moment. So we're not looking at really anything here at the moment. Moving on over to the Western Pacific, you can see 92W there to the west of the Philippines, towards the left of your screen really. And then of course you can see what used to be 93W, now just an AOI, about a few hundred miles east of the Philippines near the Guam and such. So that is what we're looking at there. Of course, everything's much more dry as you get towards Japan. Of course, 92W is also named Lanny by the Philippines. Here we are in the North Indian Ocean, and you can see what's going on here. What used to be Shahid is just nothing at this point. There's literally no trace of its existence, given the fact that it just plowed itself as a small cyclone into Oman. And of course, that was a storm that we tracked recently. And then of course you can see 92W, which had the Philippine name Lanny, that brought significant rainfall across a good portion of the Philippines there. Now could bring some significant rainfall to Vietnam and the Hainan Peninsula nonetheless. We'll see what goes on, but as there's a lot of uncertainties regarding 92W's track. In the Eastern Pacific, here the sea surface temperatures, they're around 28 to 29 degrees Celsius for a majority of the basin. Some 30s as you head into the Baja California Peninsula. In the Gulf of Mexico, it's around 27 to 29, same thing in the Caribbean, same thing in the Western Atlantic, and of course same thing in the main development region, with some upwelling from Sam visible by that little divot in the sea surface temperatures in the Northern Atlantic there. So that is something that we are monitoring there, of course. In the North Indian Ocean, you can see the Bay of Bengal is warming up, with temperatures in the 30 degrees Celsius range increasing, while the Arabian Sea is also warming, more areas with temperatures around 28 to 29. In the Western Pacific, the temperatures are also pretty warm here, 29 to 30 degrees Celsius throughout the entirety of the Western Pacific, except for the area where we saw Shantou and Mindul track over. And of course, as we go into the southern hemisphere, those temperatures are cooler. Of course, those are going to be slowly warming up as we get closer and closer to the season. Of course, the 7 to 11 storms is what the southwestern Indian Ocean prediction is from France. Here are the sea surface temperature anomalies. You can see the La Nina continuing to develop in the eastern Pacific there. Pretty good temperatures in the Atlantic and western Pacific, with the exceptions of the upwelling caused by Mindul and Sam. North Indian Ocean looking relatively above average as well. On this day in 2013, we had one system active, that would be Typhoon Fito, which would eventually become the strongest storm to make landfall in mainland China since 1949. Of course, there was also two systems that were either just dead or about to form. What had just been Tropical Storm Karen had died before making landfall in the Gulf Coast, while Narda was about to become a tropical storm in the eastern Pacific as well. Of course, you can find more state products powered by Cyclone history. Their Twitter tag is followed on the bottom bar below. Well, that brings us over to the next names at this point. The next name in the Atlantic is Wanda, the final one before we start the Xeria list, starting with Adria. In the Eastern Pacific, we're looking out for Pamela and Rick. And in the Central Pacific, while we don't know what makes Starburst so juicy, we also don't know why we still haven't seen Hone yet. In the Western Pacific, we're looking out for Lion Rock and Kampasu. And in the North Indian Ocean, the next two names here now are Jawad, followed by Asani. Moving on over to the Southern Hemisphere, specifically the Southwestern Indian Ocean, the next two names here are Anna, followed by Betsy Ray. In the Australian region, we're looking out for Patty and Ruby. And in the South Pacific, we're looking out for Cody. We'll be back for another Tropical Weather Bulletin tomorrow night.